So, welcome everybody to this session, the 1st of April, to the next session of the Water School Africa. And my name is Vinny Jain, and I'm a director with the Flow Partnership. And we work globally looking at water retention and water literacy. And Water School Africa, all our colleagues who are engaged in this are here in this session. And we constantly look at organizations and people who are doing water retention and water literacy very successfully in their own regions. So today it gives me great pleasure to introduce Nourane Amr from Egypt, and also because Nourane's a woman working in this field, and it's not often that we have women presenting on this. There are many, many wonderful women in Africa who are doing enormously good water retention work, but there are very few who actually talk about their work. So it gives me great pleasure to invite and see Nourane presenting. Nourane's from Egypt, and I'll leave Walter to introduce her to you, because Walter was there a couple of months ago or a month ago at their place in Egypt and teaching on a course, and that's how we heard of Nourane, and he spoke glowingly of the work that Nourane and her organization are doing in I think it's 7 or 9 countries across the continent of Africa. So the session will run for about 40 minutes. Nourane will talk of her work, and then afterwards there will be another 40 minutes open for discussion, reflection, questions, anything that arises for us from the session and from the work that Nourane has presented. So enjoy the session, and over to you, Walter. Thank you everybody for joining.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And yeah, as Minnie has said, my name is Mugobe Walter Nyika, based in Lusaka, Zambia, and working with the regional schools and colleges permaculture network, which is a partner of Water School Africa. Yes, I have known the NILE Journeys program, which is working in several countries along the Nile River. Although Nile in NILE Journeys means nurturing impulses for living ecosystems. And about 2 years ago, I was invited by Nile Journeys to facilitate at an eco-village design education workshop that they organized on an island in Lake Victoria in Kenya. And that's where I first met Nourane. Yeah, I've since been to their other projects in Egypt. So it was then that I felt that from the work that they are doing, we can learn a lot as Water School Africa. So it is therefore my pleasure to ask Nourane to share their experiences of supporting water literacy and water holding practices in one of their project areas. So over to you, Nourane.
Thank you so much, Minnie Jane and Baba Mugove, for this warm introduction and for this incredible opportunity to join a diverse network across our beloved continent. It's always inspiring to witness this collective effort of sharing knowledge and learnings, and most importantly, to foster connections, all in a pursuit of a stronger and united Africa. Before I start, I want to happily introduce myself to the group today. I am Nourane. I grew up by the Mediterranean Sea in Alexandria, Egypt. This is where actually the Nile converges and puts together all the water. So it's a place that shaped my understanding of watersheds as living systems vital to ecological balance. For me, water is a teacher, a healer, but also it offers a lot of wisdom and renewal. I am really passionate about regenerating arid landscapes, reviving ecological heritage, and also fostering community traditions that are deeply rooted in care and collectivity. As Baba Magove said, I work at Nile Journeys, which is a platform that fosters meaningful connection across the African bioregion area. So, through creating experiential learning experiences, we regenerate the land and the water, and also we nurture life affirming experiences that comes from within the community, tapping on indigenous African wisdom. So I take care of a project that is happening southern Egypt, which is one among other 21 projects spread headed by Nile Journeys across five African countries. So we work in five countries, and I'm so lucky to be here today with you all. Maybe now I can walk you through the content and the key points of our discussion. So we can go to the next slide. We are going to discover the mission and vision of Nile Journeys and where do we exactly work. I think we can go to the next slide. Yes, exactly. The Nile Journeys target scope, our programs and water projects across African bioregion area. Where do we exactly work in Egypt? And I'm going to frame and give context of the Nile Journey current project that is happening in Aswan Governorate in Egypt. Our project objective in this specific project happening in Egypt, and how are we trying to regenerate the land in this project. So we are going to explore and showcase different water harvesting techniques that we are trying to implement. And I'm going to walk you through the future and potential water projects that are happening across the bioregion area of Africa. But maybe before we start, I would like to lay the ground for our presentation with some playful pop-up questions. And maybe you can use the chat box to write down the answers just to warm up the conversation a little bit. Um, so we have the first question. As you can see, uh, we have to name a country with the largest number of pyramids. You can go to the next slide. In the African continent. You can use the chat box if you would like. Name a country with the largest number of pyramids in the African continent. Some answers are coming in. Okay, Egypt. Okay. Next slide. How many countries are sharing the waters from the Nile River? How many countries are sharing the waters from the Nile River? 5, okay. What else? 6, 4, okay. Next question. From where does the Nile River originate? Okay. Uganda. Okay. Nice. Okay. Thank you, everyone who contributed with your answers. Lake Victoria. Okay. Nice. Um, yeah. So actually, these three questions often lead to misconceptions. For instance, many people in Egypt and in Sudan are unaware that the the country that holds the largest number of pyramids it's actually Sudan, because Sudan holds 250 pyramids. Also, the Nile is often symbolized by Egypt, but also the water is shared among other 11 countries. So it passes by Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Congo, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Sudan, Eritrea, and Egypt. And actually, the Nile River originates from two main tributaries, the White Nile and the Blue Nile, as you can see in the next slide. So this tributary begins at Lake Victoria in East Africa, primarily in Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. Its ultimate source is through Kagera River, which feeds all the Victoria Lake, and this is the White Nile. The other source is the Blue Nile. This tributary originates at Lake Tana in Ethiopia in the highlands of the country. So as you can see, it's really obvious that the Nile is shared among many people that are citizen and that are inhabitant on the Nile banks. So it's the largest river in the world. It runs over 6,693 kilometers, and all the history and heritage of all the 11 countries are really connected and coined to the Nile. So more than one third of the African population call the Nile home for them. So whether we agree or we do not agree on the construction of dams, for example, but dams are built to exert control over water resources, disrupting the natural flow of the rivers. So this dynamic of controlling unfolds around vital scarce resources. And this is stemming actually from the culture of fear of losing control and dominance over scarce resources. So this dynamic contributes to also a colonial narrative that aims to divide us as a continent to conquer. As a diverse continent, as you can see, we sometimes also absorb this narrative and we internalize it, so we lose sight of our shared land and waters. The Nile shapes 34% of the forested landscape of Africa. So there is high potential for restoring an integral river basin. But when I say integral, which means that we recognize our systemic interconnectedness among all the communities that reside along the Nile banks. But of course, there is weak collaboration because there is a baggage of conflicting dynamic and a relationship that is based on mistrust because of policy making and the colonial legacy of agreements and boundaries. And the water has been weaponized and politicized across different generations. So I'm laying down our presentation today with those questions because I want to emphasize that the pyramids are not exclusively Egypt's, and the Nile is not solely Egypt's. And this is exactly our mission and vision in Nile Journeys. We can go to the next slide. So our foundation for the Nile Journeys is to challenge this narrative that is based on greed, extraction, and discrimination, and also sometimes separation, into a narrative that promotes unity, collectivity, care, interdependence, and Ubuntu. I am because you are. It's a philosophy that is stemming out from the African indigenous wisdom. So the Nile holds a profound importance for Nile journey, not only as a source of water or irrigation, but also it's a living system. It's a divine life force that connects people and communities across the watershed and this body of water. So we are trying to nurture lives and fostering interconnectedness among our bioregional area. Our scope and target, as you can see, we can go to the next slide. We work with youth and we work with marginalized and disadvantaged communities. We have 8 community hubs that operates across the bioregional area. We have the oldest and our first community hub was established in Kenya. And we have another one in Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, and our newest one is in Egypt. So these hubs are actually community hubs that serves as a vibrant pocket of ecological and cultural revitalization. They exemplify land and water regeneration, and we foster on reviving the traditional knowledge and the preservation of the ecological and cultural heritage of this region. especially the African continent. Um, we are also establishing our coordinating office in Nairobi. This is also a very new office that is going to take place in Nairobi. Um, we can go to the next slide. And maybe in order to reach out to those communities like youth and marginalized communities or underprivileged communities, we have created three main programs in order to reach out for those communities. We have the water and land regeneration. We have youth consciousness and indigenous wisdom art program. All these three programs target our mission and flows with our theory of change. We work with people, we work with the land, and we work to nurture life-affirming experiences that stems from the African wisdom knowledge. So each of those programs have a direct intentions, and all our projects that are catalyzed by the NILE Journeys are in sync with all and fall under those three programs intention. And sometimes one project can work in line with two programs intention. So for example, the project that is taking place in Egypt right now, it is targeting the youth consciousness intention and also the water and land regeneration. I want to zoom in maybe more with the water and land regeneration program because this is the program that is currently unfolding in Egypt right now. So this program contributes to regenerate the water and the land, but also ensure that the human community is engaged actively in this regenerative process. So we work with the concept of community hubs as explained, and those community hubs are like pockets and micro zones of striving to become sustainable communities or eco villages communities to give model on how we want to see life in a basin in Africa. So these sustainable communities are engaged in a process of becoming more resilient to climate change and creating sustainable livelihood for the inhabitants of the bioregion area. So as Baba Magove was saying in his introduction, under this program, the water and land regeneration, we have other sub-programs. We have the Eco Village Design Education, which is a certified course by Gaia Education and the Global Eco Village Network. We organize the EDE on one of our 5 countries that we are working in. So in 2023, we organized an EDE that took place in Kenya, and this is when I met Baba Mugove. And actually, this program is tackling 4 major elements of sustainability: the ecology, the economy, society, and the worldview. Baba Mugove was the one responsible of taking care of the ecological dimension, and all the training was centralized around permaculture design, agroforestry, and all integrated methodologies that has to do with the ecosystem. This post course is also followed by a regenerative community project. And this is actually a prototype of the project that is currently happening in Egypt. After taking the course of the EDE, we go to the community hubs and we try to integrate all the knowledge that we have gained during the EDE and to have hands on the ground during on one of our community hubs. And this is exactly what we are doing right now in the community hub in Egypt. And then we have the bioregional Ubuntu Lab. This is one of the sub-programs under the water and land regeneration. It's more advanced than the EDE, but it focuses on the concept of the bioregion. So since the Nile, for example, is the natural phenomena that reunites all people among the 11 countries, we are trying to gather all the community hubs together in the framework of the Ubuntu Lab, which is one of our partners at NILE Journeys, to create a bioregional regenerative project across the continent. The second program is the youth consciousness, and it all has to do with youth camps and exchange programs. And the third one is the indigenous wisdom. And this program actually is more of creating and facilitating games. And those games are integrated into the water and land regeneration program and the youth consciousness. So, for example, we implement pedagogical tools, we do facilitation games and graphic facilitation design. We use board games and wisdom cards. Sometimes we use the pedagogy of the theater of the oppressor while organizing, for example, the EDE, or while implementing the youth consciousness and the youth exchange programs. So we use these tools to be integrated inside. So, for example, as you can see in this picture, we have the Nile Valley game. Nile Valley is referencing from Lake Victoria, and it aims to raise awareness about the water resources and the diverse aquatic species within the bioregion area. And actually, this game has been translated into 4 languages: the Amharic, the Arabic, the Swahili, and the English, in order to include as much citizens to play across the bioregion area. If we organized also a youth camp or a youth exchange program or the EDE. The wisdom cards, as you can see also in this presentation, we are trying to integrate the indigenous wisdom in all our visual representation and visual identity in the Nile Journeys. So also this game is it's like a game of checking in and to have a reflection on our journey during, for example, organizing an EDE. So we check in with those wisdom cards. It's like an angel card or a tarot card. And also all the visual representation is in line with our values. We can go to the next slide and explore what are the values that are anchoring us in Nile Journeys. So as you can see, uh, agility, rootedness, interdependence, integrity, authenticity, peace, companionship, and mindfulness. All these values are our guidance. And maybe let me zoom in the water and land regeneration program, so I can walk you through the other water projects that are happening across the community hubs that we are working in. We can go next. So we have, for example, the water access in Jerota, Kenya, which is a community school where we have installed and extended underground water pumps. And those water pumps actually span around 105 kilometers. And these pumps transported water from higher elevation point into a lower elevation point, ensuring access for also the community that is living around the community school. Another prototype project that took place in Ethiopia is the sanitary facility of the Philly Coffee. So we are having like a community gathering space where people come together to play and to talk and to just meet up. So in this place, we created a sustainable water management system, which is really important to ensure a reliable coffee brew. Now, I want to zoom in maybe more on this program, the water and land regeneration, to have hands on our community pocket in Aswan. In the next slide, as you can see, where do we exactly work? So we work in the southern region of Egypt. We can do another click. Yes, so we work in Upper Egypt, in Aswan Governorate, and this region is located south of Egypt. And since we are currently putting hands on one of our prototypes, and since also Baba Mogove came to visit last month to share his knowledge around permaculture design and agroforestry. We had the best encounter with the local community when Baba Magove was there. So maybe it's important to shed the light on this program, this project today. As you can see in this map, we work in this area. We can do another click also. We work in this area that is called the Shalal area, which is also more south to Aswan. We are not working in Aswan Governorate. We are even going more south next to the borders of Sudan Governorate, actually. And we work in a very specific area, which is an island. So it has a very unique topographical landscape. So it is an island surrounded with water from all the direction. And actually, this island is surrounded by other 5 islands. As you can see, we can do another click from the far east, from the far west, we have Awad, and then we have in the far east, we have Angelica and Bija, and in the middle, this is Heissa Island. This is exactly the island that we are working in, which is called also Fila. And Fila Temple, as some of you might know, that it is one of the temples, the oldest temples that are found in this area from the ancient Egyptian civilization. Why do we exactly work here? We can go to the next slide. Why do we exactly work in Aswan, and why more specifically in Heissa Island? Maybe in order to answer this question, we need to ground ourselves first with the historical context of this region, because the Nile River was intrinsically connected to each and every aspect of the daily life of the Nubian nation. The Nile that has shaped the ecological context and closely tied to the socio-economic, cultural, spiritual context of the Nubian region. So we are going to explore how the life of the Nubian people looked like and how the implementation of the mega projects event has disrupted those aspects of life. Either has disrupted the people, has disrupted the ecosystem, the cultural, the socio-economic life. Every aspect of life was disrupted because of the construction of the Aswan Reservoir in 1902, followed by the construction of Aswan High Dam in 1960, or between 1960 and 1964. So in order to understand this, we need to anchor ourselves around this context, and maybe we will explore later how this have devastating consequences on the Nubian people, and how through this project we are coming in to intervene and to counter those devastating consequences led to the dispersion of the disruption of the Nubian nation. So we can go to the next slide and explore the geographic location and size of the Nubian island, or the Heissa Island that we are more specifically working in. So historically talking, we can have another click because it is showing a map that is really, really important. So Nubian region has historically spanned from the first cataract, as you can see, from Aswan Governorate, to the sixth cataract, reaching to the Sudanese border at Wadi Halfa and Dongla. So all this area was named the Kush civilization. But after the construction of the lower reservoir, which was led by the British colonization, and it was on the same era of Muhammad Ali, which is one of the Egyptian leaders in Egypt. So this area was segmented, and it has created new boundaries that are significantly disrupting the community in various ways. And as explained, that Heissa Island is in the middle, and it is surrounded from the north with Aswan Reservoir, and from the south with Aswan High Dam. So of course, this has even more disrupted, specifically Heissa Island. Not only it has led to the migration of the people, but also the whole ecosystem that is tightly linked to the Nile. Also, it's really important to shed the light that Aswan Reservoir has been built on three levels. So it was first inaugurated in 1902, and then it was heightened for three times. Imagine, like three times of heightening up an Aswan Reservoir. So this has led to the migration of three waves of Nubian citizens. And of course, this has led of horizontal migration, but also vertical migration. As you can see in the map shown down the presentation, that some people who were living in Fila, south to Aswan, they have been displaced even more north to Aswan, and some people went more south to go to Sudan. So of course this has disrupted the ecosystem and also the living system of the Nubian people, but also people who were residing on Heissa Island. Heissa Island, we can go to the next slide and we will discover that the soil topography is not linear. We can click for the second time also, because the soil topography is not linear at Heissa Island. It has lowlands and highlands. We can have another click and we will see that some areas are wetlands and they are so close to the Nile, and other are in higher altitude and they are dry, and it's a rocky mountain. So of course, during the inauguration of the Aswan Reservoir, so many people went from down to leave their wetlands because it was submerged because of the flooding of the Nile, and they came all the way up to climb the higher areas of Heissa Island. So of course, this has led that all the fertile wetlands that were in low position has been submerged, and all the fertile lands has been gone and thrown away, because all the high areas are more dry. And of course, this had its ripple effect when it comes to, for example, the livelihood activities that has to do with farming and agriculture. So we will also put our hands on the ecological biodiversity that is really unique in this island. So the natural environment in the island support wilderness, as you can see. So the island is surrounded with waters, and of course inside the Nile there is a whole system of aquatic species that take the Nile as a habitat for them. And also all the Nile banks are surrounded with indigenous plants, like for example the gawafa, the mango trees, the palm trees, the acacia trees. And the gawafa tree was, for example, one of the symbol of resistance, for example, for the Nubian nation, because when they have left their indigenous and traditional homes that was submerged because of the construction of Aswan Reservoir, and the flooding of the Nile took over all the wetlands, they climbed all the way up, and in order to stabilize their lands, they have ingrained the guava trees to reclaim their territories in the upper dry lands. So, of course, all of these are symbols of resistance, and it shows how the Nubian people, anyways, are resilient by heritage and by history. As you can see, also there is goats and reptiles. There is also water purifier trees that are found in the bio region area. So it's really holding a lot of biodiversity. All of that was disrupted because of the construction of the Aswan Reservoir. Uh, we can go to the next slide and we will discover how the socio-economic life was also very tied to the ecological biodiversity, and it has actually inspired traditional livelihood closely tied to the Nile. So, for example, individuals residing near the Nile bank engaged in agriculture. But of course, the farmers who are engaged in agriculture are not similar to the farmers that are found, for example, in Delta, because as explained before the construction of Aswan Reservoir, there was a natural flow of the Nile coming in and going back according to the different season. So everything was in synchronicity to the natural flow of the Nile. So there was a very minimal human intervention when it comes to farming. They weren't doing excessive farming, like going to the land every morning and try to take care of the land for every day. It's not an intensive labor, so it was a little bit more. It's more of heritage, and it's more going with the flow of the of nature in general and the whole ecosystem. And most of the people were engaged in livelihood activity, like for example fishing. There was a lot of fishermen, and also some people practiced palm-based handicraft activities. So for example, some people were also taking this handicraft activities into a further level by creating, for example, domestic furniture and boat construction, by taking off all the dead trunk trees, and they took the wood that is growing across the Nile banks, for example, the guava tree, the mango trees, because they are more specifically tied to the Nile banks. They took all the woods to create the boats, and sometimes also they created their furniture. Um, and also they took over all the medicinal herbs that are also inspired by growing along the Nile banks. So of course all of this aspects has been disrupted because of Aswan Reservoir, and then followed by the high dam that was constructed during Gamal Abdel Nasser nationalism era. um, a lot of people has been displaced, 100,000 Nubian people. And this has also a direct impact on loss of the traditional livelihood and ecological practices. All the fertile land were submerged, and all the people were pushed inside in the deserted areas. And some people abandoned their land actually, and this is creating a dynamic that has to do with building luxurious hotels and guest houses, because now people, they want to have a fast income stream revenue. So in order to meet their economic needs, so they are going to the Nile banks, and they are building new constructions and guest houses, and this is also creating another social divide, because all the communities are now marginalized and are pushed away from the river banks, which are now dominated by the touristic institutions. So all the traditional livelihood activities are that are historically coexisting along the Nile have increasingly been overwashed by the emergence of those touristic oriented developments, such as guest houses and eco lodge. Not only, but also the disruption of the biodiversity and the ecosystem towards the land. Now many people are, especially youth, are working in tourism because they want to generate fast income, and few remain on taking care of the land or by doing fishing industry. So, and of course this is really tricky, because tourism is also seasonal and it leave a portion of the year unproductive. So this gentrification of the island is actually rampantly growing, which create an invasive dynamic towards the land between the local brokers and the outside investors coming in the island. This has proliferates and this empower the local community actually. The fourth aspect that is really important, we will discover on the next slide how the Nile has a cultural and spiritual significance to the Nubian people. So the Nile was referred as a divine source of life. So even the annual flooding before the construction of Aswan Reservoir was celebrated by the people around the Nile River. So they go and they throw plants over the Nile to celebrate the gods and to celebrate the flooding of the Nile, which is bringing fertility to the land. And this event was marked by rituals and offering, and also they have personified the Nile as giving it the name Happy or Habi, which is a god that is symbolized by fertility and power for the people. Um, all of this was disrupted because of the immigration and the pushing away of the people away from the riverbanks. Also, some people came around the Nile banks to celebrate ceremony and marriages, baptism, also to give birth. They went all over the riverbanks to celebrate the newborn. Even the mud and how the traditional architecture was built of the houses was made by the mud coming out from the riverbanks. As you can see in this picture, also there was no ceiling inside the Nubian houses. It was all open to the sky to invite other species like birds. So they always believed that a house without a courtyard is like a human being without a soul, for example. So for them, everything was interconnected to the Nile, intervening with either the Aswan Reservoir, followed by the High Dam, followed by the new form of gentrification that is manifested on the construction of the guest houses all over the river banks. All of this has disrupted the livelihood activities and the cultural and spiritual significance of the Nubian people. Um, and of course, as you can see, in light of this challenging context, we are trying through this project that is currently unfolding in Egypt, in Heissa Island, to address this current challenge through reviving the ecological and cultural heritage of this nation, and support the resilience of indigenous communities through sustainable solutions and collective efforts. We can go to the next slide. Of course, we have already tackled this point that has to do how the Nile has disrupted the different aspects of life. But through the project's objective that are coming up here, we are trying to first, we can go to the next slide, build resilient communities able to face externalities, which is one of our major program intention in the water and land regeneration program. Second is to have a more self-sufficient intervention. We can go to the next slide and see how being self-sufficient is really, really important. And this actually is one of the factors that enhance building a more resilient community, especially that inside Heissa Island, it's worth noting there is no local markets inside the island. So people have to commute in and out with the boats to go until reaching in the north Aswan governorate itself, because because the community is living in the island surrounded with water. So they have to commute with boat and take another transportation, local transportation that has to take, for example, 30 minutes to reach local markets. So, of course, all of these challenges are pushing the community to be more self-sufficient, and we are trying with the community to enhance this pillar as well. And the third dimension, which is really important, one of our third objective is agroforestry. As explained, we can go to the next slide. We are trying to build a connection with the new touristic institutions. So we are not only working with the farmers and the individual plots to maintain the self-sufficiency, but also we are trying to work in public spaces. So we are trying to integrate our values that has to do with regenerating the land and the water also inside the touristic institution. We are trying our best to build connection and partnership with those institutions to explore the potential collaboration to this project, either through enhancing the waste management system or to contribute to public roads regeneration while supporting the kitchen farms that are found inside this eco lodge and touristic institution, and general landscape of the agroforestry in the public spaces that are found next to the touristic institutions. We can go to the next slide. And as explained, we are working with farmers in the island. We are having like 16 farmers in the island so far. We are trying to push those farmers also because they are having their lands from their grandparents. So we are trying to find resonance with the people who have already an oral history and a heritage that has to do with their land connection. So we are trying to amplify the voices of those people through going back to the land and empower them on the self-sufficiency level. Also, the public space, we work in the school. We have one school in the island, so we are trying to also regenerate all the water system and all the water irrigation system and the land regeneration system inside the school. We can go to the next slide. Yes. So as you can see, water, especially in the island, is a vital cornerstone to regenerate the ecosystem. And maybe now we were able to answer the question why we are working in the island, because it is really, really interconnected to the Nile, and the Nile takes place in each and every aspect. And we are trying to revive what the Aswan reservoir and also what the gentrification is doing to the land and to the water and to the community, to counter those practices, those harmful practices, with more ecological and regenerative practices and long-term ones. So we focus on, we can do another click. We focus on water. We focus on water. So we have the restoration of wetlands. It's really, really important. And we are trying to implement innovative solutions like water harvesting or water repurposing water recycling. These efforts can rejuvenate the vegetation and boost the wildlife habitat and foster resilience to climate change. Since water is our main area of focus during this session today, we are eager to showcase two distinct topographical sites through which we explore innovative approaches to water management and harvesting. So the next slide, we will explore, we can do another click so we can see the pictures. As you can see, there is two different topographical sites. There is the wetland, which is really low, and there is the highland that is also very away from the Nile banks. So we are going to explore how we are maneuvering the different topographical landscapes. So the first one, we can go to the next slide. So this is one of our farmers who owns this land, and as you can see, this is a wetland that is closely tied to the Nile. We are going to explore how we can benefit from the seasonal changes manifested in the change of the water level of the Nile, and how we are able to appropriate the trees and select the appropriate trees that should be selected based on this phenomena of having different water levels across the different seasons. So this farmer wasn't really sure if the fish pond, because he wants to have a fish pond inside his farm, he wasn't sure if this area is the best area where he can have his fish pond. So he was doubting because this area doesn't have a lot of water, especially in the dry season. The Nile goes down. So the level of the Nile, when it goes down, especially in November, the farmer wasn't sure if he will be able to secure a lot of water inside the fish pond, because there is no enough flow of the water coming from the Nile. And by doing this, he might risk his fish to die. So we were able, by designing his plot of land, of course, with the support of Baba Magove, we were able to appropriate and select the best trees, like the mulberry and the fig trees, to be planted at the farthest point where the Nile reaches, even in the dry season. So we were able to manage this distance, and we have ingrained the trees, the mulberry trees and the fig trees, that have a very unique characteristic. They expand their roots when they sense that there is dryness. So they expand their roots and they suck in all the water inside. So by this mechanism, we ensure that all the water will be kept inside the fish pond, and the fish will be eventually alive, because we secure all the water inside the fish pond, even in the dry season in November, when the level of the Nile is lower. We can go to the next slide. This is a highland, which is the second topographical site. And of course, as you can see, the highlands are away from the riverbanks. So we try through collecting and harvesting water that comes from the domestic usage, to collect water. How do we collect water? Through creating ponds. These ponds are designed to be on the highest point of the island, and we try to collect all the water coming from the domestic household, to retain and repurpose the water. So these deep and circular ponds store the water to redistribute it from the highest to the lowest point. And this is established through building terraces on gradual level, as you can see, to mitigate the run of water. Because if we don't do these terraces, the water will flow very fast. So in order to slow down the water and to retain it, we must create those gradual terraces among different levels. And this will also enhance the moisture of the soil. It will keep all the soil moistures around this area. And also creating sunken bed design will also help maintain and retain the water in the soil. In the next slide, we will explore how we can repurpose the water, especially that there is a big problem in the island. It's not a problem, it's a challenge actually, that has to do with the leakage of water, because there is a high intensity on water leakage. There is a poor infrastructure pumps when it comes to the island, because the whole landscape of the island wasn't made to have pumps and infrastructure. It was all depending on the flooding of the Nile. But now, since people are migrating and displaced up, we need to find new ways and navigate new ways on repurposing the water leakage, and come over with new ideas that has to do with the poor leakage system. So in the school, as you can see, the tub is leaking a lot of water. So we are trying to make this tub to act as a pond or as a reservoir. And this reservoir will help redistribute the water all around the surrounding terrains. Also, the water tub, as you can see in the picture down at the presentation, it is also leaking a lot of water. So we try to create new paths of the water so it can irrigate the new seedlings that we have created inside the school. And of course, this will facilitate a natural flow of the water. And in the same time, we will diminish and mitigate the leakage of the water. Also, it's really important to think out of the box and think about the traditional materials that are used in the heritage and the culture heritage of the Nubian people. So they used traditional tools and material like the clay, for example. The clay is really important when it comes to the culture of the Nubian people because it keeps the water cold even inside the houses. When you go in the Nubian house, you will always see this clay pot where people drink water from it because it keeps the water very cold and cool. So we can also integrate this material inside our water and regeneration system by reducing the loss of water because the water is cold, so we are reducing the evaporation of the water. And sometimes we can either put the clay inside the soil, or we can create a very small hole in the bottom of the clay. In the next slide, you can see this is one of our farmers that we are working in. She's a woman. She's a very resilient one because she has a farm that is really challenging, and it has a rocky hill. So we recommended her to maybe use and implement the container gardening. Container gardening is having different containers where she can put and grow different plants and seedlings inside those containers, but also she can repurpose the water coming out from the domestic house through creating a filtration system. This filtration system is by using different four levels, starting from the first level, from the highest level that is made from stones, and then followed by the sand. Then the third level is papyrus, which is one of the most famous indigenous trees of the Nubian nation. And the fourth level is more next to the ground, which is a shallow pond, and it can allow the exposure of the sunlight, and of course the heat of the sun will help a lot on the dissolution and the biodegradation of any remaining material. And the stones that are used in the very first level is used to remineralize the water and adjust the pH balance while infusing the essential minerals that are really, really important in this location. Um, we can go to the next slide. This is a video. I hope that it will work. Yeah, we can only just click on the video.
I'm sorry, Nuran, this is not playing on this. Your request access itself denied.
Okay, maybe I can give you access just for a minute.
Or if you send it to us later, we can send it to everybody in the.
Yes, sure. Yeah, no problem.
There's
But actually, this video wanted to showcase that how the stones are made to remineralize the water. So this farmer was like actually building a stone made of bridges. So you can see the difference of colors between the water running before the stones, which was a little bit disturbing water with a lot of remaining and foreign material. But after the stones, we will see that the water is really clear. Even you can drink from this water because it's really, really clean after the stones implementation. And also the lotus pond is one of the water purifier agent that are really important, and it is an indigenous plant as well. Um, Another technique of retaining the water is mulching. So, in dry, arid landscape, mulching is really important because it helps retain the moistures in the sun, in the soil by reducing water evaporation. So, the dry material used for mulching, like for example, the leaves, all the dry leaves that are going down from the trees, we don't have to put them away. We have to actually integrate it inside the soil, and they, by time, they will gradually decompose and will act as a fertilizer actually, and as a nutrient for the soil. Another way to use also or to foster the mulching is by using pebbles. So we can use also the pebbles to keep the moisture in the soil, but also to eliminate the evaporation of the water. It's really, really impressive to witness how the local knowledge and the depths of the local community that emerges from within the community actually. Um, uh, Here, I want to conclude also our presentation with our future projects that are on our pipeline. And those potential projects are happening across the bioregional area of Africa in our community hubs. So there is a future water project in Riofa Island, and Riofa stands for Ruzinga Island Organic Farmer Association, which is a social also enterprise committed to bring a model and learning center for regenerative farming and business practice. So we are trying to put a sanitation system in this island, also a water reservoir for capturing rainfall in Ruzinga Island as well. And we are trying to put a drinking water access and a water usage measurement technical device for the farmers in Uganda, especially. And finally, we are trying to put a water reservoir and storage in Gerota, the community school that we have explored among our presentation. I want maybe to conclude our presentation with a very beautiful Nubian song. I want to give honor to this community actually, because the Nubian heritage song, it yearns for the promise of returning to the land and celebrating palm trees growing in the courtyard, which is a symbol of abundance and shade. So this is a song that illustrates all those images. So maybe I will leave you with this song, and then we can start our Q&A session. Do you hear it?
There doesn't seem to be sound.
Okay, so maybe
No sound. Hold on.
can I share from my side?
Yes, you can. I'm going to stop this in a minute.
I will try to
If I
share
stop
from my
share,
side.
please share from your side. You click the share screen and then you can share it from your end. But I'm not sure it will play.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
مشتاقين يا ناس للبيت لنجع الحبايب لبلاد النخيل والغيط عيون اللي غايب بالحب الكبير والشوق الكتير مشتاقين يا قبر الشوق جوا القلب كان لسه في حضن الحب قبر الشوق.
Thank you very much, Nora, for a very comprehensive, inspiring presentation. And I particularly liked the way you premised the presentation in the historical and geographical background. So we have about 15 minutes to discuss. And already there's a question in the chat. Roslyn is asking about the transboundary agreements as well as government issues, and also whether the techniques that you shared are indigenous or you introduce them to the community. Maybe you can start with that and then we can have other questions.
Yes, sure. So first, thank you so much for your questions and your interaction among the chat box. I have just came across it, and I'm really happy to share a little bit more around the questions. So, of course, there is a lot of governance systems and policy making when it comes to manipulating the waters and also the construction of the dams that are happening either in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in Egypt. It's all about maintaining the power and having dominance over the water. I'm really, really glad to share with you all the treaties and the conventions that has to do with the water management systems, especially in the era of the British colonization and also during the nationalism era of Gamal Abdel Nasser, but also what has happening in Ethiopia and in Sudan in terms of policy making and all the treaties that has to do with this. So maybe, if possible, Baba Magove, we can create like a document that we can share it with the people here over this network, so we can be more informed and share the knowledge around those treaties and policy making over the dams. Which was the question that has to do with the water harvesting?
The last part, I think, was whether the water harvesting techniques are traditions, are from the traditions of the area, of the community.
Mm-hmm. So actually, some of them are coming from the traditional way of farming. Like for example, because as explained during the presentation, the topographical landscape of the island is really not linear. So there is some wetlands and some highlands. Since even the construction of Aswan Reservoir, this was the general topography of the island. So people were always trying to navigate how they can capture the water, especially that the climate there is really hot and dry. But of course, it has been proliferated over time, especially when encountering climate crisis or after the construction of the dams. It has been proliferating, but all the traditional knowledge coming from within the community is the ones that are inspiring for us. So, for example, the clay and all the cultural materials that are used are also inspired by the indigenous community. Also, the terraces built, all of this is also inspired by the topographical location of this island. So it's all inspired by the general ecosystem of this region.
Thank you, Nourane. Peter, can you come in with your question?
Yes, thank you, Nourane, for a very comprehensive presentation. There's a lot of material there to reflect on. My question follows that of Rosaline a little bit. I know that the governance is probably very complicated and so on, but I just want to know, especially since there was a lot of tension between Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt around the Great Renaissance Dam, which is on the border of Ethiopia and Sudan, which was completed in 2023, I think, whether the water in the Nile coming into Egypt has been reduced, significantly, or whether the governance has allowed the water to be more or less the same. So that's the first question. And the second question is around, again, the techniques in the highlands, because most of the work that we do is trying to prevent the water, try to help the water sink into the ground and make use of the water, not close to the river, but many of us don't have a river close by. But the highland work that you mentioned, what percentage of your overall work is highland work and those techniques, and what percentage is more, relating to water use close to the river? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for those questions. They are really important questions. Actually, for the first question that has to do with the dam in Egypt and in Ethiopia, actually, the water has never been reduced in Egypt. So this is a big myth that has to do with the construction of the dam, and we have to create the dam to collect the water and to diminish the water to be run off or to be wasted, and the water will be in a lower level if we didn't create the dam. So it's all coming from a place of fear to lose the dominance and to lose the control. However, it's not a problem of the water going down, but it's more about how we can redistribute the water on the giving the different topographical locations. So actually, the Nile goes from Uganda until from the White Nile to the from the Blue Nile and the White Nile, and goes all the way down until reaching to Egypt and then the Mediterranean Sea. So it's actually a slope. So it can be created otherwise by designing another way of retaining the water and redistributing the water as exactly the one that we are doing in the island. So it's like having a high area and having a low area, and we are trying to redistribute the water in different levels. So what is happening in the island is a small actually prototype of what should be done on the bigger scale when it comes to water redistribution and water retention among the different countries that are sharing the body of water of the Nile. So the water has never been lowered in Egypt. It's all about how we can redistribute it among the 11 countries that are sharing the Nile. Of course, the dam has been there to minimize the flooding or to regenerate electricity, for example. But it's really important to note that there is only 20% of the electricity that is regenerated in Egypt. 20% only is coming from the high dam, only. So it's just creating a dynamic of greed and more separation between the countries. Of course, I'm just giving a nutshell about a long history that has to do with dams, but as explained, I'm so happy to share more through the upcoming sessions or maybe through a document. Your second question that has to do with the highland and the lowlands. Actually, most of the lands that we are working in Heissa Island are highlands. Because the lowlands are so limited, there is only like 5 villages around the island that are lowlands. All the individual farmers who have individual plots are in the highlands. And also all the touristic institutions that we are trying to collaborate with are all built. Some of them are next to the Nile, as explained, but some of them have affiliated public roads that are inside the island. So, and all the affiliated islands are up toward the Rocky Hills. So we are trying our best to integrate indigenous knowledge and agroforestry and permaculture design techniques that are inspired from the traditional knowledge inside the highlands. I hope I have answered your question.
You have, and it's good to know that the Nile has not reduced. Like there's a river in the United States, maybe you've heard of it, the Colorado River, that is no longer existing because so much water is taking out that it doesn't even reach the sea anymore. So it's good to know that that's not happening in Egypt. Thank you.
No, it's not happening. It's all about how we can redistribute the water because there is abundance of water actually in the African continent. It's all about the dynamic of internalizing the colonial legacy of separation since the British colonization. So it's all about how we can redistribute our water in a more equitable way, away from policy making and greed and extraction and separation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can allow also Philip to ask his question. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Nourane. That was such a lovely presentation, and it gave a completely different view of how water has these dimensions of a spiritual quality, cultural quality, a social quality, and that was really enlivening and deepening of our understanding of water in Africa. So thank you very much for giving that presentation. And yeah, I suppose my question would be, in what sense is the work you're doing known throughout all of Egypt? Is there a real discussion at a national level of the importance of water for Egypt, it being the lifeblood of the whole country?
Yeah, thank you, Philip, for your question. It's a really important question, and there is a lot of a lot of challenges that has to do with water in Egypt, not only in Egypt, actually in Africa in general, because as explained, like even inside Egypt, there is a lot of separation between the Nubian culture and between the Egyptians. The Egyptians living in urban setting. There was a wave of migration and during especially Gamal Abdel Nasser in 1964, this community has been discriminated away from the social fabric of Egypt. So this has created an internal tension and internal discrimination between people, even because of the race, the color of the skin, even. So even people in Nubia, they sometimes associate themselves more easily to Sudan. So this is really disturbing dynamic, and we are trying our best through alternative projects and through our personal also initiatives growing in Egypt. So, for example, there is different NGOs working in Egypt when it comes to waste management and when it comes to regenerating the water and the communities that are taking the Nile as a habitat for them. There is some NGOs that are trying to pave the way of to have this dialogue between Nubian people and between people who are residing inside the urban setting, for example, in Cairo, and also in other governorates, in Delta, for example, as well. So some initiatives are coming out to have this collective dialogue and to redistribute ourselves among the different aspects of ecological regeneration in terms of water, in terms of waste management, in terms of agroforestry. And even some people are working, for example, in Cairo, on how we can regenerate urban setting. For example, having rooftop gardening or even public spaces, public gardens. But there is a long way to walk when it comes to regenerating lands and the Nile. Because it's not easy, especially when it comes to the overall context of having investors and building new eco villages and build not eco villages, building hotels, for example, or building skyscrapers. All what is happening inside the island when it comes, for example, to guest houses, it is also manifested on an amplified way during inside the urban setting. So you can see, for example, there is um, a long way to walk when it comes to how we can counter this gentrification even inside the urban setting, because there is a lot of skyscrapers and investors. They want to invest more on fast income stream and mega projects event, even more than having green areas and public gardens. So there is a long way to go.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank
Just
you.
before we go further, Walter, I would like to just remind everybody. First, Nuran, a huge thank you for this most passionate and beautiful presentation, tracing the history of how water gets lost from a landscape and how traditional societies still have that memory of bringing it back and how you're working to make that happen. So it's not just about collecting the water, but also rooted in the memory and tradition of the people living there and how they can bring it back. And beautifully, beautifully done. So really a huge thank you for bringing it alive for us. And a message for everybody, we have the Water School Africa sessions, online sessions on the first Tuesday of every month. And so if you would like to have notices, around the Water School Africa and would like to be part of the mailing, do put your email in the chat. We also have a movement on water harvesting WhatsApp group, so put your number if you'd like an invitation to join that. And if you're already on it, don't worry, you'll get the messages in any case. And I just wanted to remind everybody, because we're nearing the end of the session, but I can see Frida has a question as well, and maybe we could wrap up after that. Frida, do go ahead.
All right, thank you very much for your beautiful presentation as well. I just have a little something going through my mind about land. Are the farmers you are working with mainly landowners, or you also have people who are not landowners but just have access to land? Because the interventions seem very intensive and time consuming. So I was wondering if what the land access or ownership is like in your work and whether there are any challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Yes, so all the farmers, the individual plots that we are working with, uh, all the owners of those lands are coming from the local community. So all the local community who are growing their own agricultural lands are owned by the local people. However, when it comes to the public spaces, when it comes to the guest houses, the mega touristic events, the mega touristic institutions, those are owned by external investors. But there is something really important, that the Nubian people don't sell their lands. They rent their lands for example, 15 years long, so that the investor can put all its financial resources and build his a guest house, and the Nubian partner that owns the land come to partnership with the investor coming from outside the island. Of course, this is a very problematic dynamic, because all the Nubian people, they don't work for someone. They partnership with the investor coming from outside the island. But in the same time, he has more interest to, for example, go to do his own labor, like go to the Fila temple to have a tour, a touristic tour for the people coming. So he will not invest his time to work on the guest house. It's really, really few people who can stay with the investor to work hand in hand and come into a collective decision making on the guest house. And because some Nubian people think that, oh, the investor, he has more knowledge, he will understand more than me, because he has a mindset of a businessman who is coming from outside the island, so he will have more outside of the box ideas, so he will have more trust to leave his this business to the investor coming from outside the island. And this creates the dynamic of dependency over the people coming from outside the island. And this is creating a tearing again between how the people of the local people don't trust themselves, and that they have capacities and indigenous knowledge on how to run their own businesses, or the even touristic businesses, because they can do it anyways. And it creates a dynamic of, okay, the investor coming from outside the island, he will have the decision making, the final decision making over the land, because the land is rented for over 15 years. So we are trying a little bit to counter this dynamic through giving hands on how these guest houses can be ecological, but also taking part of the local community to take part of the collective decision making when it comes to regeneration, the affiliated lands that are public in public roads next to the touristic institution. We engage more the community to have hands over those lands and have autonomy over the decision making. I hope I was able to clarify this for you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nourane, for this powerful presentation. I think you can see from the level of engagement that you have really inspired people, and hopefully you can also be able to share some supplementary material that people have there to look at. And also just to let everyone know that the session has been recorded, and the link to the recording will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Also, if you are not yet part of that group and you would like to continue being updated, kindly add in your details in the chat. And thank you everyone for the lively engagement that we have had. Yes, Minnie?
Yeah, I also want to again reiterate an apology for our French-speaking audience, that we tried very hard to get the interpretation working, the simultaneous interpretation working today, but technically there was some hitch and we just couldn't get it to work. However, we will have a French translation of the recording up on the Water School site as well, for you to get access to or listen to afterwards.
This is perfect.
All is not lost. And for the next month, we will test it beforehand, so your time will be well used if you come in and speak only French, and you will have both. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Minnie, and thank you, everyone. I think it has been a very intense session, and we look forward to the next one, and also to getting more information about the Nile Journeys in WhatsApp group. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Thank you, Nourane.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.